I want to welcome you. I'm Nicole Havelka. I'm the Minister for Resourcing, Networking, and Creativity with the Ohio United Church of Christ. And I'm excited that you folks are joining us today. This is our Ministry Spotlight Lunch is what we're calling it for now anyway. If you have suggestions for what this could be called at other times, we're happy to take suggestions. We're still feeling this out and feeling it, seeing how it works. We're excited that you can join us for this free discussion. And today I have with us Rebecca Tollefson, who is the Executive Director of the Ohio Council of Churches. And she's even physically in the room with me because we have the pleasure of sharing office space here in Columbus at our offices for 2 months or so, maybe a little longer, not quite 2 months, a little under 2 months we've been sharing office space. So we have the added bonus of having our presenter being here right here with me, which is really cool. So I'm excited that she's here. We're sorry that Phil Hart, our conference minister, he's normally the one who leads these chats, but he's on a much deserved vacation this week. And so I said that I would take over. So one of the reasons we invited Rebecca to be with us today is because she's just returned a week or two ago from the Parliament of the World's Religions, which I'm excited to know a little bit more about. But first, I'm going to let her tell you about herself, about what the Ohio Council of Churches does and how she came to this work, because I think that's fascinating.
Hi, I'm delighted to do this. I appreciate the invitation. I'm Presbyterian. Grew up in Iowa. My biological family still lives in Iowa, but I have no desire to move back to Iowa. I've been in my position 18 and a half years now. And ecumenism is in my bones, I think. It just makes sense. I don't understand people who don't understand it. So, but I came here from being on national staff with the Presbyterian Church USA in Louisville. And before that, I lived in Minnesota. I was a pastor at a church outside of St. Paul, and I also was the director for the Faith and Order Commission for the Minnesota Council of Churches. And then my first pastorate was in Adair, Iowa, small rural between Omaha and Des Moines on Interstate 80. So, but let me talk about the council after.
Okay, absolutely, right. Absolutely. So what we're mostly excited about hearing, among other things, is tell us all about the Parliament of the World's Religions. What is that like? What is it? First of all, just the basics of what it is.
Well, there were nearly 10,000 participants. It was the first women's assembly. It was the first live-streamed parliament with 28,000 views. The largest number of programs with 1,800 presenters, the largest number of exhibitors and films, including Oprah's Belief. The Imam of Mecca attended for the first time. And the six came and shared their Langer tradition all 5 days. So Langer is a meal, and so we were guests. It was free to us, and we had to cover our heads, and in the area where we sat in rows and looking at the other row in front of us, and then people would come by and give us food on our plates, and we could have as much as we wanted or whatever. It was an incredible opportunity. Women and young people under 30 made up just more than 65% of the participants. And the majority of all the MCs were women. But let me show you the book, Parliament of the World's Religions, and it's 370 pages, and the first part was just kind of, giving you a broad view of who's who and what's what. But then you get into the, there's also an app, and I want to share that too. You you could go to a schedule by day or by topics or by speakers, yeah, and I think track. And so what I would do is I would look in the program book, because I didn't want to carry this thing around, and then on the app I could put in what I want to go to, and that was incredible. There was a plenary focus every day. There were exhibits that were just phenomenal. The Buddhist monks from Tibet created a mandala, where they stand and it's just minuscule sand colored that they put down, and they worked on that the whole time. And then when the Parliament was over, it was discarded. So it's amazing to see that intricate work.
And we'll have some images of that a little bit later too. We have some great photos that Rebecca.
So I just wrote down some words. It was fascinating. It was awesome. It was stretching, and it was exhausting. Right. You can't take in everything, and I don't know how many were offered every day. On the app, I could go to my schedule and see what I attended. Thursday was the first women's inaugural, and that was pretty well attended, I think. I don't know how many thousands were there. There was women's sacred space. There were workshops on women, the earth, and the sacred, exposing caste-based sexual violence. Sheroes, that was a really cool one. Sheroes United, like heroes, only with an S in front of heroes, presents 1 Billion Rising flash mob. And it's drawing attention to 1 billion women who are raped, beaten, or killed around the world. And so that was incredible. I went to the role of religious leaders in alleviating violence against women. On Friday, and they had something, say, from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. So you could go all day, all 5 days, but then you'd be totally wiped out. One workshop I went to was Embodied Service, the Wholeness of Women's Spiritual Leadership. And so the description is there, but then there are presenters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as co-presenters. And then you could go to one of those names and see who that person was, as well as what other sessions they were participating in. I mean, it was just, this app was...
So it sounds like a fabulous use of technology.
Oh my gosh, it was. And then, let's see, in the afternoon workshop I went to on Friday was on a common word between us and you. It was the 2007 Muslim scholars wrote a letter to leaders of Christianity in terms of what is common between us. And that was a fascinating workshop. And then that evening, let's see, Spotlight on Emerging Leaders. And Ebal Patel was there. I'd never been in a room with him, and I wanted to see what he was like. And
he's the founder of Interfaith Youth Corps.
Right,
correct. In Chicago.
Yeah. Right. So, let's see, Saturday. Oh, I participated in a flash mob.
We'll have photos of this too, by the way.
It was the first thing I signed up for, because I've always wanted to do a flash mob. So you'll see that.
Right.
Saturday afternoon was a plenary on the Spotlight on Income Inequality. And Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he is a New Thought minister and founder of the Agape International Spiritual Center, a trans-denominational community dedicated to living out values of service and outreach with marginalized populations. There were many people there who were familiar with him. I'd never heard of him, and he was compassionate, he was engaging, and it's like, okay, so what can I do? You know, that type of thing. Jim Wallace was on that as well. Mobilizing a movement, an intergenerational, interreligious approach. Alan Bosak from South Africa, he's been on the faculty as a visiting scholar at United in Indianapolis. No, Christian Theological, sorry. Too many Uniteds around. And then Ibo Patel and Joan Brown Campbell, former General Secretary of the National Council of Churches, she helped to moderate because the moderator had to go someplace else, but she also presented. But they talked about building and sustaining movements. And so that was fascinating. And you know, and it's just, there was the exhibits. One was Danny Wright. He's a musician, a pianist. And I have one of his CDs. And when I saw his exhibit, I went up to him and I said, I love your music. And I bought 4 more. Sunday, Language of the Heart, which was a Native American focus, if you will, led by, I think it was Larry Sespooch. And there's a shrinking number of Nakota Assiniboine, I'm not pronouncing that probably correctly, and Dakota Sioux language speakers on the Fort Peck Indian Reservation in northeastern Montana. And so what he was drawing attention to was to remind us that when we came to this country, we took the Native Americans and made them not speak their language. So now the concern is, how are they going to, and what are they doing to help equip their children and others to regain the language and traditions? Because so many leave the reservation, go to the city, and they don't want anything to do with their heritage. So that was a heavy piece. Sunday evening was, that's right here, it was called like a sacred music evening. And it was at the Salt Lake Tabernacle. And a remnant, a segment of the Tabernacle Choir sang, because I really wanted to hear them. I wanted to hear that organ just kind of explode, but they sang a soft song, so I didn't get to hear anything like that. And I think I don't know if you chose a picture or not, but Cambodian Buddhist dance troupe. One very intriguing was a Burundi drum group who were refugees. And they're keeping their African spirituality alive.
Yeah, I know we have photos of some of those things. Pam, can you maybe bring up those photos and then we can start showing those to folks while you can keep going. But
well,
while
I can say something too about the photos.
Yeah.
I sent way too many photos because it was just. This is the I know an Imran Malik here in Columbus. This is Imam, who is the president of the parliament. And let me find his appropriate name. Sorry, I didn't have that right here. There's a board of trustees for the parliament, and they're the ones really responsible. So it's Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. very gracious person. I would want to work with him on the spot. He was no defensiveness or anything, just a very gentle person. Okay, Pam, you can go to the next one. The Dalai Lama had been advised in September at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, that he needed to rest in October. So he was supposed to be there, but he came via video. And I've never heard him before. And he's a very funny person, and just so humble. The Buddhist monks there on the left screen, this is their chanting. And they would go like, and it'd go on for like 5 minutes. It was just fascinating. The gentleman, the third from the right, was the leader. And somehow they knew all when to stop. And then he would put his hand, one hand in front of his lips and start again. It was just how they, well, they learn it. So, and these were the men who were working on the mandala.
Which we have another picture of. I think the next one is the mandala. We wanted to go there.
Oh, yeah. So, and you see behind, there were tables around this where they were selling things. But that mandala is fine sand. And the gentleman there is gently tapping a stick. It's a metal stick that would hold the sand. And just gentle. So that's just amazing to me.
And this is obviously partway in because they've done quite a bit of the artwork at that point.
Yeah, this was almost at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe go ahead and go next, Pam.
These were 5 of the women who were at the Women's Assembly. There's a bishop of an intercontinental church on the right, then a Jewish woman, can't remember the woman in the blue, and then a Muslim, and then another woman. I don't remember what they were speaking about. There were 3 others on the other side of the podium, but I was this close, so I could take a picture.
So you had said earlier that women and people under 30 had occupied the largest percentage of folks. Are there any theories circulating about why that is and why especially young people are attracted to this, given that in general, the perception anyway among churches is that young people want nothing to do with church. So what makes the parliament different, do you think?
I don't know if it was just the diversity, the vastness. There were pagans, there were druids, there were all kinds of prayer centers around. Some of these religions had exhibits. I got a massage. I don't know exactly the term it was, but it felt really great from the Christian Scientists. I told my dad, I'm getting a massage from the Christian Scientists. So, Church of Scientology. Sorry, not the right one. So the plethora. And I told Nicole, this is helpful for me because I have not had time to debrief because there was so much. And I came back just totally wiped out.
Right.
So let's look at the next picture, Pam. Oh, these were drummers. There was in the exhibit hall, there was a place where groups would come and perform. And they were fascinating. I wished I'd videotaped them. They were great. Fascinating.
Were they from some particular tradition or place?
I think they were, I'd have to look.
I know, that's hard to remember all that detail after however many days of that. Yeah. Very cool. Maybe next
and
one.
I probably have it on my phone because I tried to write in under pictures who people were.
Right.
Okay, next one. Oh, this was at the end of one of the plenaries of the Parliament, not the Women's Assembly, but these children all came together to dance. They did some dancing, and I think there were some children's programs. There weren't a lot of children, but then they performed on stage, and this was the finale for that plenary. I just loved it.
Mm.
There was one little boy in the troop, and he's right there in the front, in the center, in the green. The only boy. I thought, good for you. Okay.
Very good.
Is there another picture?
Yeah, there's a few more.
Oh, Black Elk. Native Americans welcomed us to the sacred land in the opening ceremony on Thursday night to the Parliament. There was a procession, and they led everybody else in. And so all things are our relatives. What we do to everything, we do to ourselves. All is really one. And the whole message to me of the Parliament was, we are one. We need to get over whatever hang-ups we have with one another. It's not that important. What's important is for us to be one. One humanity.
Right. I think there's a few more if we want to go to the next one, Pam.
The young woman on the left, they decorated up their little bikes, to take people around. And I asked her if I could take her picture because I thought she was so cute. So the Native American tents were in the welcoming space as you came into the Salt Palace Convention Center. And there was a place for being blessed with sage. And then you could go where there was a huge, in a sense, a fire pit where you could go and just stand and kind of try and take it all in. And I just thought this was a fascinating place, and I thought the photo turned out pretty well.
Right. It's also a fascinating contrast between the background, right?
Right.
The background there.
This was in the exhibit hall. When our mind is at peace, the world is at peace. So take a deep breath, put your palms together, let your heart return to its origin. I'm reading upside down. Quiet down, relax, and it was just like just a reminder, and especially here where everything is bombarding you, just to kind of, I thought, I got to take a picture of this and remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. And we might have one.
Okay, there I am doing my thing with the flash mob. The young woman on the left is from France, and she led this. And of course, you could see how skinny she is. And we were supposed to start, they started sitting on the floor with their knees up near their chest, where I am not able to put my knees that close to my body. So I would have to get up on all fours in order to get up. But I got into it, and there were probably 10 of us that did this. I've got a lot more photos on my Facebook page, but it was fun. I just wanted, it was good because you get out of the thinking, the heaviness of everything.
Right.
So, is that the last one, Pam?
I think that's the last photo, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah.
Okay.
So what was probably and I know that you're still processing an incredible amount of information, right? But what was significant, do you think, about the Parliament?
This was the largest they've had. And do you want me to say the history?
Sure, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, the first Parliament was in 1893 in Chicago. then it didn't happen until another 100 years. And that was in Chicago. And then 5 years later, it was, I'm not saying these in order, but 5 years later, South Africa. 5 years after South Africa, it was New Zealand. And 5 years after that, it was Spain. So then it was coming here, and I thought, it's happening in my own backyard. I really want to go. I think I was just blown away by the diversity. I mean, there were 5 other state council execs, my colleagues from around the country who were there. We got together once, and then I never saw them again. You know, there's some people you see, oh, I saw her yesterday, or I saw him, 2 days ago, and then some, where are they? And I think just observing and the graciousness of the Salt Lake community was incredible. Just incredible. I mean, I wanted to say one of the sacred music pieces were the whirling dervishes from Turkey. And oh my gosh, are they graceful. And they stay in the same place as they twirl. I would be dizzy on the first round,
Right.
But they were fascinating. There was a youth multi-faith choir. I bet you they had 250 kids that sang. Yeah. I mean, I could go on and on and on about this. So
Sure. Well, I do want to give you a chance too I want to leave both some time for questions at the end for the folks who have joined us live, and then also just give you a chance to also talk about the Ohio Council of Churches and what you all do and what resources do you have for our local churches, because that's something I bet they're curious about too.
Well, we don't have resources as such that you can come and pick stuff up.
Sure.
But on our webpage, there are places where you can go and look at resources pertaining to whatever.
And we'll get those up on our Pinterest boards and our website, that kind of stuff too.
I have a part-time colleague who does public policy, so he works down at the legislature. He has worked at the legislature for 30 years, so he knows his way around. He's very well respected. He and Jim Tobin, who is the Catholic Conference lobbyist, have worked very, very well together. And then we also have worked with the Jewish community. Joyce Garver Keller just retired this summer, but the 3 of them were the God Squad down at the legislature. But Tom has been faithful in speaking against the death penalty. We can speak on issues where the council has taken a position. So the death penalty, health care, childhood education, gun violence, those types of things. So he's when the legislature is in session, he is down there most of the time. And so that's hard. We have been in a transition, an intentional transition to figure out where we're going in the future. The judicatory leaders said, yes, we want the council to continue, which was like, oh, good, I'm employed still. But we are focusing on incarceration as our emphasis in 2016, and there will be a group of people working on that. I just have to really prod them, I think, and maybe steer them to some resources. The National Council of Churches has been working on this as one of their priorities. And there's been a civil discourse group of about 10 that I pulled together a year ago because I want to be able to help others have a conversation on difficult issues. So how are we civil to each other? And I had the opportunity in October to go to an event. It was by invitation, collaborating for a moral civil discourse. There's a National Institute for Civil Discourse in Phoenix. at the Arizona University. The Akron Beacon Journal was in on this, and the Newseum, the news people, the journalists. So it was politicians, journalists, and faith leaders. And we talked about, so what's my concept? What comes to mind when I think of a journalist? Well, they don't tell the truth, okay? Politician, scum of the earth, whatever. So we wrote all this stuff down, and then we talked in our groups, well, is that how we come across? So we met as those three entities in circles, but then we also met, the faith leaders met and said, oh, we don't like what, we're being called or whatever, and journalists and politicians. So it was very, very helpful. And my group meets in another 2 weeks, and one of the women that was there, this was just Ohio based, is going to come and work with our group. One of the things that I do have is this book, Religion in Ohio. It's dated. We had to work on this for the 2003 Ohio Bicentennial. I have 5 books that you can come and buy for $10 each. We just co-sponsored last week a day on health disparities within health, which is a non-profit mutual insurance group. And it was very well attended. It was the second time. For myself, I'm busy making connections, building relationships, getting 28 bishops and executives to know each other, or to connect with each other, or to work together. Now, the Roman Catholics and the Lutherans don't have a difficult time because they have a couple covenants between them. But I have a Greek Orthodox metropolitan in Detroit and one in Pittsburgh. The African Methodist Episcopal Zion bishop lives in Georgia. And then the Moravian executive lives in Pennsylvania. So none of these, they have never all gotten together. And the positions change. The new person comes in, somebody goes out. So it's building relationships is just huge. We just also worked with bringing Cardinal Turkson to Columbus. He was the primary writer to the Pope on the environment encyclical. And he was busy from Friday night until Monday night. And so I was a part of that planning as well. I was really honored to have that. So how are we doing on time?
We're doing great.
I am on the Ohio Global Leadership Board. There's a U.S. Global Leadership Board, and I'm on the Ohio one. We don't do a whole lot here yet. And then I'm on the board for the Payne Theological Seminary's Bishop Vinton R. Anderson Ecumenical Lecture. And that's been marvelous. One of your questions was, what is the broader interfaith movement like in Ohio? Well, in central Ohio here, primarily the Columbus metro area, is the Interfaith Association of Central Ohio. And I have been a member of that since I came. It's a small group, but they do what's called a main event luncheon once a year. And they bring in a person to speak, and that's well attended. And they mix up people of different faiths around the table. So I'm not sitting next to a Christian. I need to talk to my Hindu friend or my Jain friend. So that's great. In Cincinnati is the Metropolitan Area Religious Council, which is interfaith. Cincinnati and Cleveland kind of do their own things. And so I, for many years, invited myself to Mark. But I just decided to stop. in Cleveland 2 or 3 years ago, they started Cleveland Congregation Connections, I think is what it's called. And there were over 2,000 churches that joined, or temples or synagogues, whatever. I don't know what they're doing now, but I'm sure that's significant as well. So that's
from these vast experiences, right, that you've had doing this work in Ohio for a number of years, and then getting to go to things like the Parliament and seeing that broad picture of the interfaith movement and ecumenical movements that are happening right now, which are pretty incredible, right? What would you say if there's a local church, because we have local church folks who are watching, like what would be some best practices or tips you would give them if they wanted to put a toe in the water, like if they wanted to do something that was interfaith in their own communities?
Well, I just happen to have 2 books, How to Be a Perfect Stranger, Volume 1, and then Volume 2. And it's a guide to etiquette and other people's religious ceremonies. Mm-hmm. And I just think what you need to do is get to an event or go and visit. I was riding with a gentleman yesterday up to Toledo to the Northwest Ohio Denominational Leaders Meeting, and he is just afraid of all Muslims. I said, "You're kidding me." No. So next time I go to something with the Muslim community, I'm going to take him. Because he has this concept that he knows he probably shouldn't, that there's terrorists. Well, the Noor Islamic Center here, Imam Malik, Imran Malik, is a wonderful young man, president of their board. And they welcome other people to come and learn about them. There's I think it's a Jain temple in Powell. The Jain temple is on Old State Route 3 north in Columbus here. And I was invited to be a speaker. They want me from a Christian standpoint to talk about peace. Ahimsa Day was in October, and it's recognized around Gandhi's birthday. And it's a day where the focus is peace. Hindu temple is further north in Powell. But there are several opportunities. If you're in Cincinnati, try and become connected with MARC, M-A-R-C. Here in Central Ohio, Interfaith Association of Central Ohio, IACO. But this book gives you, I just opened it, as Christian Church Disciples of Christ. What are their history and beliefs? What's their basic service like? How many churches? What's their membership? Where do you contact them? What's the appropriate attire? What's in the sanctuary? The service, when should guests arrive? And where should they sit? What are the major ritual objects in the service? What books are used? Guest behavior during the service. Are you expected to do anything other than sit? Is it okay to take pictures? And after the service, is there usually a reception? Is it okay to leave early? And vocabulary, Holy Communion, lessons, dogma and theology, holy days and festivals, life cycle events. And that's done for many religions in these books. And
right. Oh, that's really helpful, because I think I know that for many people, probably the biggest risk, or the thing that inspires the most fear, is that you just do something wrong.
Right.
They're not necessarily afraid of engaging a new faith, but they don't want to look stupid while doing it. Right?
But that shouldn't hold you back, because I think if you go, say, to the Noor Islamic Center here in Dublin, they greet you And if you start to go in where the men are praying, someone will say, oh, you can't go in there as a woman. The women meet upstairs and they look over into the area where the men are praying. So I think in the people I've met here in Central Ohio are very gracious and not saying, Nicole, you just messed up.
Right.
But Nicole, let me tell you, you need to put one of these scarves on your head. And then you can also say, well, why? I mean, you can engage, don't say that right away, but, you know, then ask, so what's the importance of covering my head?
Right.
So.
Well, I think, I mean, this has been my experience when I've been in interfaith experiences, but generally people aren't offended if you simply ask and don't know. You know, if you just admit, I'm just not sure, can you explain?
Right.
Why, explain the significance of the headscarf or why we would need to wear it. Why in the case of, if you're in a Muslim context, why are men and women separate? And tell me more about that. And people usually want to tell you,
exactly.
Right? Right.
Yeah. And I want to emphasize that ecumenism, which is Christians, is still needed as well as interfaith. Christians need to get their act together because we keep splitting.
Yeah, so say more about that. What would be your vision, ideally, of Christians then coming together? How might that look?
Well, for instance, if you're doing a workshop on human trafficking, say the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America Northwest Ohio Synod, well, they could plug into the UCC Association up there. They could invite the United Methodists. I mean, it's working together. I mean, human trafficking is something we're all dealing with. So it's like common sense. Think of the others that might work with you in a specific context.
Right. Just it's forming a habit of remembering to do that. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I want to give folks, we have about 10 minutes or so left, and I wanted to give the folks here an opportunity to ask questions too. I could probably keep going because this is so fascinating. The folks who are on the line, do you have any questions for Rebecca that have popped into your head while we've been doing that, or have any come up via chat? I know that some folks may have chatted their questions as well, if that has popped up. But feel free to unmute yourself to ask a question.
We just finished the Writer Band lecture series. Are you familiar with that? It's a Jewish Christian dialogue that happens here between Wright State University, University of Dayton, and United Theological Seminary. And I would just add that to your list of potential annual events. This happens every year.
What's it called again?
It's called the Writer Band Lecture Series. We have a professor from Vanderbilt who was here all day yesterday, both private and public events. But it's very much in the context of what you're saying. So I would just suggest that as an addition.
That's helpful. Part of the challenge for me is I have to go looking for news. People don't share it with me. And so one of the things we've talked about as a board is there should be one person in every judicatory, which is 28 bodies, that sends me information. I get some e-newsletters, but otherwise, I'm going out and trying to find something. So thank you very much.
So any other questions that have popped to mind as we've been chatting today? Okay, well, go ahead. You do that, and maybe while they're percolating, what might come up?
There were, at the Parliament, declarations that people were invited to go and learn about You can also read about it. And if you Google Parliament of World Religions, you will, I think, see things that happen. But Declaration on Climate Change, Declaration on War, Violence, and Hate Speech, Declaration on Income Inequality, Declaration for the Dignity and Human Rights of Women, Declaration on Emerging Leaders, Declaration of Indigenous Communities. So those were opportunities that you could sign your name on to, and you can sign on via the internet. It didn't have to be there. So you can look up and find out what those things were about.
Sure. So essentially be part of an interfaith movement on those issues then. And those were something that were discussed then at the
Right. And I think, there was a plenary on each of those. And I think then you can read and then find out what's this about. You know, we're dealing with environmental climate change. So what's happening around the world, because we do impact each other.
Sure. And I see some more questions. So Pam, were there questions from Bonnie that maybe I could see them coming up, but I can't see the actual.
Okay. Yeah, Bonnie just said that was my question, if there were online resources about the program in general and about specific events and speakers.
Yes, yes. I'm sure that's still there.
Right, and I'll try to, I'll work with Rebecca to get those on our Pinterest page by the end of the day. So we'll work on that a little bit after
Well,
this
and
afternoon.
Interesting, it was announced that the Parliament's going to happen now every other year.
Oh my goodness.
And I just think that's really ambitious, because how can you put a booklet like this together, in 2 years?
2 years, yeah.
And it's going to be in the United States. So as soon as I find out about it, I'm going to let people know.
I was going to ask that if the dates had been set for the next one, or no.
No, it's just
Okay.
that it's going to be every 2 years, and then I heard it's going to happen in the United States.
Okay.
So that's all I know.
Well, that's good news for us anyway. That would be cheaper airfare.
That's right.
If we wanted to go to that.
That's right.
I was going to ask the question, do you have any resources on white privilege?
I don't, because it's not something that we're addressing all the time. My office isn't set up to receive things and then, people call in or write, can I get that resource from you? There might be something on our webpage. We do have a policy statement on racism, but in 2017, our emphasis at our board meetings are going to be on racism. So, white privilege, it's interesting because at one of our Ohio Ministries convocations several years ago, it was about racism, and people, when I asked why somebody didn't come, they said, well, I've been to the training. So we have so much more to learn. And I'm sure the council will be working on white privilege and so many other tangents.
Well, I would think that would go hand in hand with issues of incarceration. I don't think you can talk about incarceration without talking about race and white privilege and all of those things that go into the issue of mass incarceration in particular.
Right. I have on my Facebook, I'm part of a conversation in the Presbyterian Church on racial identity. And so it's a place where resources are put. And, Facebook is fascinating for something like that. Part of my challenge, too, is I'm supposed to do the web page and I'm supposed to do the e-newsletter. I'm the administrator, I'm the program person, all that. So, the web thing is challenging to me, so I'm doing my best. But I can always take suggestions for doing better.
Right. And I think that that's obviously something that we can continue to collaborate on too, especially we're still getting our sea legs here in terms of sharing office space, but our hopes is that there's opportunities to do ministry together more fruitfully than we've been doing in the past even. So we're excited about those possibilities here. Awesome. Any other questions that have cropped up since we've gotten started? Those are the ones for Bob.
Oh, okay. Well,
awesome. Well, we're so excited to have had you with us. Like I said, I'll do my best. We will have this recording available for later. I know that Rebecca is interested in putting it on her website, and we'll post it on our Vimeo page as well once I get a chance to edit it and upload it. That'll probably be sometime by the end of the day. That takes a little bit of time, but not too much. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention, this is on our website. We have a new website with the Ohio Conference. It's ohioucc.org. And we have there's an event that our Sylvania UCC church, and that's up in Northwest Ohio, is hosting. They're hosting the Interfaith Amigos.
yes.
Speaking, they have a lecture series. They have a lecture every single year. They do this big special lecture. And this year, the Interfaith Amigos, who are an imam, a rabbi, and a Protestant pastor, I believe, do travel and talk together about having interfaith dialogue. And I'm told they're fun and engaging. That's this weekend. So they're going to be doing a lecture on Saturday, but the church wanted to make sure and actually engage the things that they were talking about. So the next day they're actually going to have conversations in between their services at church and that sort of thing. And they're more than happy to have visitors to that event. So that's this Saturday and Sunday, and you can get more information either on their website, which is Sylvania UCC, or on our website in our events section. So I'd be remiss if I didn't promote that for them.
This was given out by one of the big supporters. You know, it's a bracelet, and also, what's this called?
A USB port?
Like yeah, so it's like, well, that's pretty clever. It's on your wrist, and then you
have your data with you. Very cool.
That was cool.
Very cool. Well, thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you next month. We'll be here. It's always the Spotlight lunch is at noon Eastern time every first Thursday of the month. So we're excited to have you join us, and hopefully we'll have some folks take a look at this video recording because this was an awesome conversation. So
thank you.